Peter Schmeichel, the great Dane who guarded Manchester United's glory. The phone call came on a grey afternoon in Copenhagen, interrupting Peter Schmeichel's lunch with his wife. Alex Ferguson's voice crackled through the line, direct and unmistakable in its Scottish accent. Manchester United wanted him. The biggest club in England, perhaps the world, was offering him a chance to leave Brøndby and prove himself at the highest level. Schmeichel's hand trembled slightly as he held the receiver. At 27, he was considered old for a goalkeeper making such a significant move, and the fee, barely £500,000, suggested United were taking a gamble rather than making a statement signing. But Ferguson had seen something in the towering Dane that others had missed. The first training session at the Cliff felt like walking into a different universe. The intensity, the quality, the expectation, it all hit Schmeichel like a physical force. Gary Pallister and Steve Bruce, the centre-back partnership he'd be protecting, watched him with curious eyes during the session. After one particular drill where Schmeichel commanded his area with aggressive authority, Bruce jogged over, a slight grin on his face. "You don't half shout, do you?" Schmeichel looked at him, his imposing 6'4" frame casting a shadow. "If you're in my penalty area, you do what I tell you. That's how it works." Bruce's grin widened. He'd played with good goalkeepers before, but this was different. This was a man who genuinely believed he owned the 18-yard box, who would fight anyone, teammate or opponent, who challenged that ownership. The early matches brought mixed results. Schmeichel made spectacular saves that drew gasps from Old Trafford, but also committed errors that had critics questioning Ferguson's judgment. After one particularly costly mistake that led to a goal, Schmeichel sat alone in the dressing room long after everyone had left, his head in his hands. The door opened and Ferguson walked in, settling onto the bench beside him. "Peter, do you know why I signed you?" Schmeichel shook his head, unable to meet his manager's eyes. "Because you're not just a goalkeeper. You're a leader, a presence, someone who makes everyone around you better. That mistake today, it happens. But your reaction to it, that's what matters. Champions don't dwell on errors. They use them to become stronger. I'm letting you down, boss. You took a chance on me, and I'm making you look foolish." Ferguson stood, placing a hand on Schmeichel's shoulder. "You're not letting anyone down. Trust me, Peter. You're going to be the best goalkeeper this club has ever had." The words seemed impossible at the time, but they planted a seed of belief. Schmeichel began to understand what Ferguson wanted from him, not just saves, but leadership, organization, an intimidating presence that would terrify opponents and galvanize teammates. He studied every aspect of his position obsessively, analyzing strikers' tendencies, working on distribution until his throws and kicks became weapons in themselves. The transformation became visible during a crucial match against Liverpool at Anfield. United were clinging to a slender lead when Liverpool launched a ferocious assault in the final minutes. Wave after wave of attacks crashed against United's defence, but Schmeichel was immense. He commanded his area like a general directing troops, screaming instructions, punching crosses clear with violent conviction, making saves that seemed to defy physics. When the final whistle blew, preserving United's victory, Schmeichel roared with primal satisfaction, arms outstretched, claiming the moment as his own. In the dressing room, Bruce approached him again, this time with genuine respect in his expression. "That's the performance we needed. You were a bloody wall out there. That's my job. You defend, I stop everything that gets through." Simple. But it wasn't simple. The pressure of playing for Manchester United, of living up to Ferguson's faith, of justifying his place among England's elite, it weighed on Schmeichel constantly. He developed routines to manage the stress, visualization techniques that helped him prepare mentally for matches. Before every game, he would sit quietly in his kit, eyes closed, imagining every possible scenario, every type of shot, every decision he might face. His relationship with Ferguson deepened beyond player and manager into something approaching mutual respect between warriors. They shared a similar mentality, uncompromising, demanding, refusing to accept anything less than perfection. After training sessions, they would often talk for hours about tactics, about opposition strikers, about the mentality required to win at the highest level. The season built towards a crescendo. United were challenging for the league title, their first in over 2 decades, and Schmeichel was proving instrumental. His presence gave the defence confidence, his distribution started attacks, his saves won points. In crucial moments, when matches hung in the balance, he produced heroics that kept United's dreams alive. Against Nottingham Forest in a title-deciding match, Schmeichel made a save that would define his early United career. A header from 6 yards, certain to score, was somehow clawed away by his outstretched hand. The Old Trafford crowd erupted in disbelief and celebration. Ferguson leapt from the dugout, punching the air. That save, more than any other moment, announced Schmeichel as something special. The title arrived in the spring, Manchester United's first league championship in 26 years, ending decades of frustration and near misses. Schmeichel stood on the Old Trafford pitch as confetti rained down, the Premier League trophy gleaming in the sunlight. He'd played 39 matches that season, kept 22 clean sheets, and transformed United's defence from capable to impenetrable. Ferguson found him amid the celebrations, pulling him into a tight embrace. "I told you, Peter, I told you what you'd become. We're just getting started, boss. This is only the beginning." The confidence wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. Schmeichel had proven his worth, but more importantly, he'd discovered that he belonged at this level. The doubts that had plagued his early months had evaporated, replaced by an unshakable belief in his abilities. He returned to Denmark that summer as a champion, but already his mind was racing ahead to defending the title, to European glory, to establishing a legacy. The following season brought new challenges. Teams studied Schmeichel obsessively, searching for weaknesses to exploit. His aggression in coming for crosses, his tendency to rush out and close down attackers, opponents tried to use these traits against him. But Schmeichel adapted with remarkable intelligence. He varied his game, stayed deeper when necessary, used his distribution more creatively. His throws became legendary, launching counterattacks with pinpoint accuracy that caught teams off guard. A young forward named Eric Cantona had joined United, a French maverick with sublime skill and volatile temperament. The partnership between Schmeichel and Cantona became crucial to United's success, though their relationship was complex. Both were alpha personalities, both demanded excellence, both refused to compromise. After one match where Cantona lost possession in a dangerous area leading to a chance against United, Schmeichel erupted at him. "If you lose the ball, you track back. You don't just stand there admiring your mistakes." Cantona turned, eyes flashing with anger. "I don't need goalkeeping lessons from you. Worry about your own job. My job is keeping us winning, and I can't do that when you're playing like a prima donna." The dressing room fell silent, everyone watching this confrontation between two of United's most important players. Ferguson let it play out, understanding that both men spoke from passion rather than malice. Eventually, Cantona nodded slowly. "Fine. Next time, I track back." "Good. Because we're going to win everything, and that requires everyone doing their part." The respect was earned through honesty. Schmeichel never softened his criticism, but it came from a place of wanting collective success rather than personal glory. His teammates learned that his demands were no harsher than those he placed on himself. He would stay after training for hours, working on specific aspects of his game, asking coaches to pepper him with shots until exhaustion made his legs wobble. The double arrived that season, Premier League and FA Cup, cementing United's dominance. But Schmeichel's hunger remained unsatisfied. European success had eluded them, and he knew that true greatness required conquering the continent. The Champions League became an obsession, a target that consumed his thoughts. United's European campaigns brought moments of brilliance and frustration. Schmeichel produced heroic performances against Europe's elite, but knockout defeats left him devastated. After one particularly painful elimination, he sat in the dressing room at Old Trafford, still in his kit, tears streaming down his face. Gary Neville, still young and learning what it meant to compete at this level, approached hesitantly. "Peter, we'll get another chance." "Will we? How many chances do you get?" "I'm not getting younger, Gary. Every season that passes without winning the European Cup feels like failure. But look what we've achieved. Multiple league titles, cups, doubles." Schmeichel looked at him, his eyes red but fierce. "None of that matters if we don't win the biggest prize. That's what separates the great from the legendary. We need to be legendary." The conversation reflected Schmeichel's mentality perfectly. He loved winning, but he needed it too, in a way that was almost painful to witness. His competitiveness extended beyond football. Teammates told stories of his fury when losing at table tennis, at cards, at anything that involved competition. Ferguson recognized this trait as both Schmeichel's greatest strength and potential weakness, the drive that made him magnificent, but also tortured him. As the seasons passed, Schmeichel's reputation grew to mythical proportions. Opposition strikers admitted they hated playing against him, not just because of his shot-stopping ability, but because of his psychological warfare. He would laugh at missed chances, mock strikers who failed to beat him, create doubt in their minds that lingered for entire matches. His physical presence was intimidating enough, but combined with his mental games, he became a nightmare to face. During one Champions League match, a world-class striker prepared to take a penalty against Schmeichel. As he placed the ball on the spot, Schmeichel started his routine, making himself appear even larger, staring directly at the striker, showing no fear. When the striker ran up, Schmeichel made a subtle movement, just enough to plant doubt. The penalty was struck well, but Schmeichel guessed correctly, diving to his left and pushing it around the post. As he got up, he looked at the striker and smiled. "Not good enough, not against me." The save became part of Schmeichel folklore, another story added to the growing legend of the great Dane who guarded United's goal with ferocious pride. The announcement came during a routine press conference. Peter Schmeichel, sitting beside Alex Ferguson, revealed that the upcoming season would be his last at Manchester United. After 8 years of dominance, he decided it was time to move on, to experience something different before retirement claimed him. The room fell silent, journalists struggling to process the news. Ferguson's expression remained composed, but those who knew him could see the pain beneath the professional exterior. Losing Schmeichel felt like losing the foundation upon which United's success had been built. In the dressing room, the reaction was visceral. Players who'd grown up watching Schmeichel command his area, who'd learned from his intensity and benefited from his brilliance, struggled to imagine United without him. David Beckham approached him after training one afternoon, his face showing the confusion many felt. "Peter, why now? We're still winning everything. You're still the best." Schmeichel was cleaning his gloves, a ritual he performed meticulously after every session. "Because I want to leave at the top, David. I don't want to be here when my reaction's slow, when younger keepers start beating me to crosses, when I become a liability instead of an asset. Better to go 1 year too early than 1 year too late, but we need you, especially for the Champions League. This could be our year." Schmeichel looked at him, something fierce and determined in his eyes. "Then we make sure it is my year. We make sure I leave as a European champion. That's the only ending that makes sense." The declaration became his mission. Every training session, every match, every moment was infused with desperate urgency. This was Schmeichel's final chance to achieve the glory that had eluded him, and he attacked it with frightening intensity. His performances reached new heights, combining all the experience of his years with the passion of someone playing for legacy. United tore through the Premier League with ruthless efficiency. The title race was never in doubt, their dominance absolute. But everyone understood that the season would be defined by Europe. The Champions League draw had been kind, but also terrifying, a path to the final that would test United against Europe's very best. Schmeichel studied every opponent obsessively, watching hours of footage, memorizing striker tendencies, preparing with scientific precision. The semi-final against Juventus was brutal. The Italian champions, technically superior and tactically sophisticated, dominated possession at Old Trafford. For 90 minutes, Schmeichel faced wave after wave of attacks, making save after save, each one more crucial than the last. His presence seemed to fill the entire goal, making it appear impossible to score past him. United escaped with a slender advantage, but everyone knew the return leg in Turin would be even harder. In Turin, the pressure reached suffocating levels. Juventus attacked relentlessly, their stadium a cauldron of noise and expectation. United defended desperately, every player sacrificing their body to block shots, clear crosses, prevent chances, but inevitably, some attacks broke through to Schmeichel. He produced saves that defied belief. A point-blank header pushed over the bar, a fierce drive tipped onto the post, a one-on-one smothered with brave timing. As the match wore on and United clung to their aggregate lead, Schmeichel became increasingly vocal, screaming at teammates, organizing the defense, willing them through sheer force of personality. When the final whistle blew, confirming United's place in the Champions League final, Schmeichel dropped to his knees on the Turin pitch, overwhelmed by emotion. They'd done it. He'd have his chance at European glory. Roy Keane pulled him up, both men exhausted beyond measure. "One more match, Peter," or "one more performance and you're a legend forever. I'm already preparing. This is everything." The build-up to the final in Barcelona's Camp Nou was unlike anything Schmeichel had experienced. The media attention, the global focus, the weight of expectation. It was almost unbearable. Ferguson pulled him aside during training in the days before the final, concerned by how withdrawn his goalkeeper had become. "Peter, you're overthinking this. Just play your game. Boss, this isn't just another match. This defines my entire career. Everything I've done, every save, every title, it all leads to this moment." "Exactly. Which means you're ready. Trust yourself." The final itself started disastrously. Bayern Munich scored early, and United spent the remainder of the match chasing the game. Schmeichel made crucial saves to keep the deficit at 1 goal. But as the minutes ticked away, desperation crept in. Ferguson made attacking substitutions, pushing more players forward. In the dying moments, with United throwing everything at Bayern, Schmeichel did something extraordinary. He ran up for a corner kick, abandoning his goal to provide an extra attacking presence. The sight of United's giant goalkeeper in Bayern's penalty area epitomized the desperation and determination of those final minutes. The corner was cleared, and Schmeichel had to sprint back to his goal, arriving just as Bayern launched a counter-attack. He positioned himself, ready to face the one-on-one that would surely come, but United somehow recovered the ball. Then, in the 91st minute, Teddy Sheringham equalized. The stadium erupted. Schmeichel, standing in his 6-yard box, roared with primal emotion. They were level. Extra time beckoned. But football had one more twist prepared. In the 93rd minute, another corner, another desperate attack. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer stretched to reach across, his foot connecting sweetly, sending the ball into the net. United had won. United were European champions. Schmeichel collapsed to the turf, his body racked with sobs. 8 years of effort, of sacrifice, of obsession, had culminated in this perfect moment. His teammates piled on top of him, everyone screaming, crying, lost in the magnitude of what they'd achieved. When he finally stood, Schmeichel looked around Camp Nou, taking in every detail, wanting to remember this forever. The trophy presentation on the Camp Nou pitch felt surreal. Peter Schmeichel lifted the European Cup, the massive trophy gleaming under the Barcelona lights, and for a moment everything else disappeared. The noise of the crowd, the cameras flashing, his exhausted teammates celebrating around him, it all faded into background noise as he held the prize he'd obsessed over for years. This was the completion of his Manchester United story, the perfect ending that he'd demanded of himself and his teammates. Ferguson stood nearby, watching his goalkeeper savor the moment, understanding that this achievement had meant more to Schmeichel than perhaps anyone else. In the dressing room afterwards, champagne sprayed everywhere. Grown men danced and sang like children, the release of tension and pressure creating euphoria. Schmeichel sat in his usual spot, still in his goalkeeper kit, the green jersey soaked with sweat and champagne, unable to stop smiling. Gary Neville collapsed beside him, both men too exhausted for words initially. "You did it, Peter. You actually did it. Your last season, and you win the treble." The magnitude of that statement was staggering. Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League, all three major trophies in a single season. No English club had ever achieved it before. Schmeichel had been instrumental in every competition, his saves in crucial moments, the difference between glory and disappointment. He looked at Neville, emotion threatening to overwhelm him again. "I couldn't have written a better ending if I'd tried. This is how I wanted to leave. As a champion of everything." Ferguson approached, pulling Schmeichel up into an embrace that lasted long moments. No words were needed. Manager and goalkeeper had shared a journey that transformed both of them. Ferguson's vision realized through Schmeichel's brilliance between the posts. "Thank you, Peter, for everything, for believing, for leading, for being exactly what this club needed. Thank you for signing me, boss. For seeing something in a Danish goalkeeper that nobody else saw. You changed my life." The following days were a blur of celebrations, parades through Manchester with millions lining the streets, endless media appearances. Schmeichel absorbed it all, knowing these moments would never come again. At the victory parade, when the team bus crawled through seas of red, he stood on the open top deck, all three trophies surrounding him, and looked out at the supporters who'd embraced him from Denmark, who'd made him one of their own. His final match at Old Trafford was announced in advance, giving fans a chance to say goodbye properly. The atmosphere was unlike anything he'd experienced, a mixture of celebration and sadness. When he walked onto the pitch for warm-ups, the standing ovation lasted several minutes, the entire stadium on their feet, applauding the man who'd guarded their goal with such fierce dedication. Schmeichel had to stop and compose himself, the emotion threatening to break through his usual stoic exterior. The match itself was almost irrelevant, though Schmeichel kept another clean sheet, refusing to compromise his standards even in a testimonial atmosphere. When the final whistle blew, he stood in his penalty area, reluctant to leave. Teammates came to embrace him one by one, opponents crossed the pitch to shake his hand, showing the respect that transcended club rivalries. Ferguson walked out from the dugout, and together they completed a lap of honor, Schmeichel waving to every section of the stadium, trying to memorize the faces, the banners, the love. In the dressing room, for the final time, Schmeichel removed his green goalkeeper shirt slowly, folding it carefully. This jersey, with his name across the back, had been his identity for 8 years. Letting it go felt like leaving a piece of himself behind. The younger players watched quietly, understanding they were witnessing the end of an era. Ryan Giggs, who'd grown from teenager to world-class winger during Schmeichel's tenure, spoke for everyone. "The standard you set, Peter, that's what we'll try to maintain, but you're irreplaceable. Everyone knows that. You don't need to replace me. You need to keep winning, Keep being Manchester United. That's the only thing that matters. The following weeks brought the reality of departure, clearing out his locker, saying goodbye to staff who'd become family, walking away from Carrington training ground for the last time. Each moment carried weight. Schmeichel joined Sporting Lisbon, continuing his career elsewhere, but everyone understood that his true legacy would forever belong to Manchester United. Years later, when asked to reflect on his time at Old Trafford, Schmeichel would struggle to articulate what it meant. The statistics were remarkable: 5 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups, 1 European Cup, 128 clean sheets. But numbers couldn't capture the transformation of a club, the intimidating presence that changed how United defended, the leadership that demanded excellence from everyone around him. He'd arrived as a relatively unknown Danish goalkeeper, taking a chance on English football, and left as one of the greatest goalkeepers the sport had ever seen. His relationship with Manchester United remained deep long after retirement. He returned regularly, attended matches, remained connected to the club that had defined his career. When a statue was commissioned of the treble-winning team's greatest moments, Schmeichel was featured prominently, captured in his characteristic commanding pose, arms outstretched, owning his penalty area. The legacy extended beyond trophies and saves. Schmeichel had revolutionized what people expected from goalkeepers, not passive shot stoppers, but aggressive sweepers, distributors, leaders. Young goalkeepers studied his positioning, his decision-making, his psychological warfare. Coaches analyzed his methods. He changed the position fundamentally, proving that goalkeepers could be as influential as outfield players in determining success. In Manchester, his name remained synonymous with greatness. Older fans would tell younger generations stories about Schmeichel, about impossible saves, about his fury when defenders made mistakes, about running up for corners in Champions League finals. The great Dane, who'd guarded Manchester United's glory, who'd arrived as a gamble and left as a legend, who'd demanded perfection and delivered it when it mattered most. His story proved that greatness came not from where you started, but from refusing to accept anything less than the highest standards, from leading by example, from understanding that legacy was built on moments when everything was at stake.